Luigi Mangione is back in court today as his attorneys drop a complete bombshell, demanding that the court throw away obviously tampered with evidence. Luigi Mangione is accused of killing the CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson, but nothing about this story adds up. Remember Luigi Mangione's backpack, which very conveniently for the prosecution has a murder weapon in it? And a manifesto where Luigi Mangione confessed his crimes? Yeah, the police illegally searched that bag without a warrant mysteriously after Luigi Mangione was arrested. That is apparently where the police found Luigi Mangione's manifesto, where he confessed to his crimes, even gave a motive, and was 100% written by the feds. In his manifesto, Luigi Mangione apparently wrote to the feds, "I will keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country." Who believes this stupid nonsense? If Luigi Mangione wanted to respect the time of the feds and he wanted the world to know his motive and why he did it, why would he plead not guilty in court? Why is he demanding that this manifesto be removed from evidence if he truly wrote this and he committed the crime? They would have you believe that after days of being on the run, Luigi Mangione kept his murder weapon? It's obvious to me that the police planted the murder weapon and wrote this manifesto in order to pin the murder of Brian Thompson on Luigi Mangione. And the question that the American people should be asking is why? It would be hilarious and actually justice if Luigi Mangione got off scot-free from this because the feds got sloppy. You had to have a room temperature IQ to believe the official narrative about Luigi Mangione at this point.
What's poppin'? My friends, my family. You guys know I'm always in the lab cooking. So I was just on Jimmy Dore's show. I was covering this. Big shout out to Jimmy, man. One of the few people not afraid to invite my crazy ass on his platform. We were discussing this, and I was explaining how this makes no sense. I've been covering this story since it dropped. You guys notice how the corporate media, like, bro, this story was hot, bro. I'm gonna have my friend Rathbone. He will be joining us here very soon. Me and Rathbone, we're gonna roast the Jewish supremacist. I'm also gonna talk about Zohran Mamdani and the nearly 100 leftist organizations who condemned him for openly selling out. And I promise you, you won't see it on many other YouTube channels covering that story. The Bernie media industrial complex has silenced all criticism of Zohran Mamdani, which is why you don't see them. That's why you don't see me on their shows. So they're like, well, we don't want to platform Nick's criticism of Zohran. Jimmy will. You know what I mean? Big shout out to my sister Sabby. She had me on. And I was explaining my critique of Zohran Mamdani, but them Bernie people were like, hell nah. I saw Jim, he did save me right after me. I would have stayed a little bit longer, but you know, I had to cook on my channel a little bit with my homie Rathbone. This is the video that corporate media never shows because corporate media was covering this left and right. This story was hot when it first came out. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, and I mentioned this point on Jimmy as well. And then out of nowhere, radio silence. No one would ever talk about this story anymore. Yeah, we already got some people from Jimmy show watching. Big shout out to the homie Jimmy Dore. Unlike the DSA left who I roast all the time, Jimmy actually supported RBN Mutual Aid. Helped us promote RBN Mutual Aid. Supported in many ways you guys don't even know. Meanwhile, the DSA left, they wouldn't be caught dead. The Zohran Mamdani left, they wouldn't be caught dead at an RBN Mutual Aid event. I just did an event with the chairman, Fred Hampton Jr. JB and Sabby had events all the time in Florida and Orlando. Where's DSA? Where's the Bernie Sanders left helping us out? I just always find it weird that so-called communists who haven't lifted a finger to help RBN Mutual Aid, they are the people who always want me to cancel Jimmy. Like, Nick, you should cancel Jimmy, man. Don't you know we disagree on some things? Those people who never lifted a finger, they always feel like they have the right to tell me who I should talk to. Isn't that interesting? So big shout out to Jimmy. We were talking about this a little earlier today. I was explaining how the corporate media, they never showed this clip of Luigi Mangione here, where if he was the shooter and the manifesto was real, and he wanted everyone to know that he murdered Brian Thompson because he was rebelling against the healthcare insurance system, why would he say this?
And completely out of touch and an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
If you couldn't hear, I know the audio on this may be low for you guys. He said this case is an insult to the American people in their lived experience. I'll play it again.
And completely out of touch and an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
Look how fast they're trying to take him away. They don't want people to hear that. And how many corporate media outlets committed journalistic malpractice? And I mentioned this on Jimmy's show as well, where they assumed that Luigi Mangione was guilty. You're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, and they helped spread the narrative. And they wanted to manufacture consent for our corrupt capitalist class that this innocent guy that they obviously set up is guilty of this crime. And you still see it to this day, where especially people on the right, even if they don't mean to, they just say, "Oh yeah, of course we can't be cheering and rooting for Luigi Mangione. What Luigi Mangione did was disgusting." You see how many people talk about what he did as if he was canonically guilty? That is not how the justice system works. You are innocent until proven guilty, my friends. Especially when you hear how they seized his bag without a warrant, because they arrested Luigi Mangione without any real due process. You guys realize that the police was given hundreds of tips because they had this fat bounty on Luigi Mangione. So a lot of Americans wanted to cash in on it. So you had all these people sending bullshit to the police trying to make some money. So the police, I know this because the police chief said there are a lot of tips they received that they had to filter through, right? So out of all the bullshit you guys received, you guys listened to this old motherfucker fucking boomer in McDonald's over 200 miles away from the murder scene and took what this boomer said at face value and arrested Luigi Mangione and then searched his bag without a warrant because you took this guy from McDonald's, arrested him without due process. And if you're going to arrest this man, you got to get a warrant in order to search his bag because you arrested him without due process. So you need to establish due process. They didn't do any of that. And you got to be a rude to believe that that's a coincidence. Because it's not like I'm accusing people who never done stuff like this before of crimes. No, the modus operandi of our police and our criminal justice system is to lock up as many innocent people as possible because we make money selling prison beds. People always talk about crime rates. Why don't you guys talk about the massive amount of people who are put in prison and charged with crimes who are innocent? The United States leads the world, one of the leaders in false imprisonments, and 90% of the time it's black men, by the way. Black people are by far tens of times more likely to be victims of false imprisonment charges in this country. And then white people are like, don't you know the crime rate for black America is so high? I'm not saying we're perfect, obviously. But they never bring up the fact that we are the number one people who are unjustly charged with crimes in the United States. The extension of the new Jim Crow, why the civil rights movement was never completed in the first place. So here's the modus operandi. This is proof that this is not behavior I'm accusing these people of without any evidence. Look, this is what the police do. Here's a police officer that was sentenced for planting evidence. And guys, fam, for every one cop that gets caught and legally charged with planting evidence, how many got away with it? I would say 100. We're just speculating. Fill in the gap. It's a formula. What's X? For every one police officer they charge, X is how many people actually committed the crime. The people who get caught are the people who are just dumb enough, so sloppy enough, don't have the standing to get away with it. I'm asking you guys in the chat. I'm looking at the chat now. What do you guys think the number is? Chicago girls at 200. I'm looking. What do you guys think the number is? I would say 1 out of 100 at least. For every, we gotta know for a fact, for every one innocent person free from prison, because there's always a story. I see it every week. Google a story right now about how some innocent black man was in prison for 40 years. Leonard Peltier was just released. He was falsely imprisoned. We have so many political prisoners. We have so many people who are falsely charged. And this is a conversation that white America is not even close to ready to have. They're not even close to ready to have this. This is the new Jim Crow. Look, cops planning drugs. It doesn't just happen in the movies. Now, with the ratio that you think is true, you don't have to believe mine. Yeah, Mumia as well. Astada Shakur. There's so many examples of political prisoners and people who are later proven to be innocent, who was locked up by a criminal justice system. White America never talks about it. So for every one person who actually gets justice, how many people don't? These are the questions that America never ask themselves as they accuse other countries of being authoritarian. There's no more authoritarian, evil police state than the United States, where cops are just planting drugs on people. Cops breaking the law, violating the rights of Americans. They get sued, and then the money that they have to pay out is paid by the American taxpayers. The American taxpayer fund this criminal behavior. So we know that they plant drugs. We know that our criminal justice system is corrupt. So why would it be beyond imagination that they planted shit on Luigi Mangione? Also spent on Jimmy Dore, how the original pictures of who they said was Luigi Mangione doesn't even match up with him. Completely different nose, bone structure. This was the first picture. Remember they told us that this was Luigi Mangione? And then they found Luigi Mangione, and it was obvious he looks nothing like this guy. And now this photo essentially is disappeared from public discourse. This is also what I mentioned. We should have Rathbone, who will be joining us here very soon. That's why I wanted to get this story out of the way. Me and Rathbone, we're going to be talking about some Jewish supremacy. Also have the story with Zohran Mamdani coming up soon. Why would they do this? We can only speculate. You guys know that United Health was caught in a massive fraud against Medicare, stealing and embezzling hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars from Medicare, and then be investigated by the Department of Justice. So maybe you have some motherfucking guy whack the CEO. And then the assassin who is well trained get away, and then you pin it on Luigi Mangione. And because I also think it makes sense, because the ruling class can't let an example of a billionaire being assassinated without there being someone who paid for it, without someone who they could put on trial and execute. Because if this shooter got away with it, that would set panic to the ruling class that there would be copycats who will also attempt to get away with it. So Luigi Mangione, this is just another theory, he is the fall guy. Since they have an assassin who they had a contract with, they let him get away. Then they have Luigi Mangione as the fall guy. Hey, guys, we found the real shooter. And now to send the message to the working class so they can never do something like this again, let's execute this guy. Because remember, they are pushing for the death penalty for Luigi Mangione. They don't apply the death penalty to rapists, not to pedophiles. if you're an Israeli pedophile, Donald Trump would help you escape and flee to Israel. So pedophiles, no death penalty. But Luigi Mangione, they give him the death penalty? It's almost like they want to silence him, huh? We got the homie here. We got Rathbone joining us. We started a little bit later because I was covering this with Jimmy. We also got into a rant about DSA out of nowhere. The Hakeem Jeffries Democrats, as I call them now. There was this DSA guy who was on Brianna Joy Gray's show debating my friend Nardine. And he was like, you guys got to understand, there wasn't any appetite for us to get rid of Hakeem Jeffries. He like, Zohran Mamdani didn't really do anything. He didn't really put pressure on us. We just didn't have appetite. Hakeem Jeffries Democrats. And we're going to get to how you have nearly 100 leftist groups and organizations that are now calling out Zohran Mamdani. And Nardine, it was one of the organizers leading the charge on this. She was the person who was debating the DSA person on Brianna Joy Gray's show. It was a new episode that came out. And the DSA guy was advocating that, hey, man, sometimes you got to sell out the Global South. You want some free buses. You can't get no free buses without selling out some Palestinians. So let's talk about this here soon, but I want to get the homie Rathbone on there with us. We have amazing streamer, geopolitical, and
right.
My friend Rathbone joined us. Rathbone dropping bangers at night. I've been watching streams recently. Great to have you back on RBN, my friend. Thank you for joining us, Rathbone.
Thank you for having me, Nick. I enjoy your show and I enjoy your take so very much. So it's nice to collab again. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, cool. Chat. Let us know how everything sounds. You know what I mean? You guys know I'm still working on it. I'm not a great audio engineer, but let us know how we are sounding. This was my main story because I want to get Rathbone on here because we're gonna break down the insanity of Jewish supremacy. But I had to share this because there's not going to be many channels that do this, and we are at the stage where people are realizing that I was correct. And remember when I was taking a ton of heat going after Zohran Mamdani? I was like, guys, I'm not taking a lot of heat right now, but chill. This is not my first rodeo. This is not my first. I've been doing this for a few years. This is not my first time going through this. I took a lot of heat when I spoke out against John Fetterman, because I remember the John Fetterman supporters, the Vanguard, Crystal Ball, all these people were like, man, Nick, you just want to help Dr. Oz. You're a secret Republican. You just want Dr. Oz to win. So, fam, this is not my first rodeo. But a lot of people are starting to realize that we was right in our criticism of Zohran Mamdani. And Rathbone, I want to get before I get here, because we got our guests here. I want to get you in here. There's a lot to cover, because we got to get to the what we call the Zop Slop here soon. But first, let's cover this massive story of over 100 leftist groups and organizations came out aggressively against Zohran Mamdani for hiring Jessica Tisch. Have you been covering this, Rathbone? What is your take on Zohran Mamdani and the pushback he's taking and the moves he's making? What are your thoughts?
I was just about to say, you were talking about how much flack you've caught for calling out Zohran Mamdani quite correctly, I might add, and I've felt this. I've gotten the same sort of pearl clutching for my content when I criticize Zohran, and people are like mad at me for it. Somebody said something to the effect of, oh, look, this is just so typical of leftists. They get their guy in and then they still just complain about it. And it's like, it's obvious to me that you're not really actually paying attention to what we're saying, because this guy has a D next to his name. He's part of the Democratic establishment. And, like you said, it's not our first rodeo. We've gone through Bernie Sanders, AOC, and there's always the, new euphoria that goes around, some election of some so-called progressive democratic socialist. But we know that they are going to grind him down into a machine politician. He's got so much arrayed against him, and it's really troubling to see him concede and make all these concessions so early. Like you said, retaining the police captain Jennifer Tisch, who's an ardent Zionist. It's more treachery, I feel like. As soon as he was elected, I was just like braced for the incoming betrayal, because that's sure to come. And I think I'm always very critical of how people react to one political election. Like, oh, job's over now. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. So
yeah, it was the same like tranquilizing drug that we see people fall for all the time. And like the DSA left, they're pretending like the genocide in Gaza is over. Like the ceasefire is nonsense. You guys realize the Democratic Party and Hakeem Jeffries is bombing Gaza right now, still killing Palestinians. Meanwhile, they're like, "Do you know that we gotta strategically work with Hakeem Jeffries to get a free buses?" That's all it took. And the strategy, and the mindset, Rathbone, because they're like, don't you know that Rathbone and Nick, they're just stupid, unprincipled leftists. Don't you know we work in 5D chess? We can't challenge Hakeem Jeffries right now. You know, when he's historically unpopular, the guy who's historically unpopular, Democratic voters are condemning Israel and they side with Palestinians at around a 75% rate. The majority of Democratic voters said we need new leadership. Every single poll and every single metric is on your side against this motherfucker. And then Zohran Mamdani and his fucking sycophants are like, you guys just don't understand strategy. Now is not the time to challenge the deeply unpopular Democratic Party with our extremely popular mayor. But go ahead, Rathbone. It doesn't even make sense.
I even tweeted about this. I said something like, apparently supporting genocide is strategic. You guys don't understand. There's like you say, 5D chess happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, you fucking peasants. You don't know what you're talking about, you goddamn workers. Don't you know you gotta sacrifice a few Palestinians?
Yeah.
To get a rent freeze? You guys don't understand how politics work.
And this guy is a welfare capitalist. You know, he's vying for the most mild milquetoast reforms, and he's being branded as some crazy communist. It's part of the narrowing of the Overton window here in the United States. The establishment loves to paint these mild reformists as if they are the end all, most leftist side of the spectrum, like they're radical Marxists or something.
Yeah, I realized that a lot of Zohran Mamdani supporters actually didn't watch him. And I also noticed, and I know you guys noticed this as well, all the Zohran Mamdani, Bernie Industrial Complex people, they made a killing because they were showing, and it was smart because it's great content showing Zionist meltdowns over Zohran Mamdani. They never actually showed what Zohran said. They were like, I want to show you guys this Zionist melting down about Zohran Mamdani. That was a great way to build support for him. Meanwhile, I was watching Zohran Mamdani, and I shit you not, guys. Every interview I seen with him, I cringed so hard. This smiling asshole who operates like a politician, making these nonsense lies he couldn't accomplish, already conceding to the establishment early on. Like I did a video before he exploded in the polls, before anyone knew who he was. I did a video on him earlier this month. He was on Hassan Piker's show, and he was asked by one of the people in the chat, how do you define socialism, Zohran? That was the first video I ever did about him, way before he was famous. And then once he became famous, I was like, wait, I know who this guy is. This is a guy who says socialism is a way to reflect our will at the ballot box, like showing it's our way to the definition was so incoherent.
He made it about a political election. In other words, like he talked. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's a way to us to fight for our needs and challenge the capitalist class via the ballot box and democracy. He was quoting that like that has nothing to do with socialism.
Right.
And that's when I first realized, like, oh man, this guy's full of shit. This guy just winging it. No theory at all. Just social democrat.
Yeah. And I want to also, I think this is a good point to make, as principled Marxists, we, talk about the contradictions and how there's, only certain things that can competently contradict and combat right-wing fascist capitalist agenda. And it's not liberalism. That's not the way that you competently contradict fascism isn't by shaking hands with fascists. It's not about reaching across the aisle and saying, look, we're going to work together and we're going to, the second that you start doing that, you know, you're not contradicting fascism competently, in my opinion. And you know, these, you know, when Trump gets in office, like, what does he do? He just carte blanche. He just installs all the people that is gonna, you know, it's basically sycophantic people that are just gonna follow his agenda. And how are we going to contradict that? You know, we're up against people that are not playing fair. They're bad faith. They're malevolent. They're malicious. They're deceptive. And we're trying to, you know, be kumbaya. It's just, it's not going to work that way. You know, we're just going to slide further into fascism.
Their strategy for class war, Rathbone, is making backroom deals with landlords and war criminals like Barack Obama. They're like, guys, if we just make a backroom deal with Hakeem Jeffries, he will vote for my agenda. Don't you know the capitalist class concedes without any pressure or demands? How does that phrase goes?
Yeah.
The capitalist class concedes without demands, right? That's how it goes, right?
Yeah.
No, they won't concede
just
without any pressure.
Nicer. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a strategy with the Hakeem Jeffries. They were like, guys, don't you know we got to wine and dine Hakeem Jeffries and not the AIPAC money.
What is that? What's your? I'm sorry to interrupt, but like, what's your take on that? Like, why would he simp for Hakeem Jeffries, knowing everything that we know about him and like how he's supposedly? I'm talking about Zohran, like how he's supposedly been pro-Palestinian and how is it now that he's just, you know, gaming it out, gaming the system? He's playing 5D chess. He's being strategic. What's the point of backing Hakeem Jeffries? Is it just to show to the establishment that you're going to play ball, you know?
Yeah. I said it before. He's a young guy. Like, you can only run 2 terms as mayor in New York. You guys think that Zohran Mamdani hasn't mapped out his future in politics? What if he want to run for Congress one day? What if he want to run for governor? He'll be still under 40, right? Or probably just over 40 once his term ends. So if the political future, because I don't think he can run for president. I'm not sure. I gotta look into that. But he can still be like a senator, right? He's so popular, like the sky's the limit. And what do you guys think Barack Obama told him? Like when they had to say, like, bro, this mayorship is a launch pad. Imagine if Zohran Mamdani did what Sharma or what any of us would do with power. We're like, man, we don't give a fuck about any of that nonsense. We're here to represent the working class, and we're here to engage in class war against the landlord class, against Hakeem Jeffries. Yes, our future opportunities within the Democratic Party would be over if we did that. So Zohran Mamdani made the strategic move to not do anything that would ruin his future career. What would ruin his future career in the Democratic Party was if he go after Hakeem Jeffries. That's why he doesn't do it. Guys, it's really just that politically calculating. Our game or our lives are just a game to them. I'll say a game is just a life.
Yeah,
our life is just a game to these people. You know what I mean?
Right.
But with that, I'm going to end the RBN stream so you guys can watch on Twitch and X, also on my personal YouTube channel. So the RBN stream is going to end, but we're going to continue.